Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 50 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast by indie authors for indie authors. I'm your host, Wade Finnegan, and my co-hosts for this evening are Trish McCallan, Carl Sinclair, and John Ward. Kevin couldn't make it tonight. He's feeling a little under the weather, so Kevin, hope you feel better soon. Our special guest tonight is romance author Zoe York. Zoe began her writing career back in 2012 when ideas for books just kept popping in her head. She has 5 published books to date and several collections, 4 collections and anthologies that have been very successful. Zoe recently put together, with the help of some fellow authors, a Spring Fling bundle and the very popular Seals of Summer box set, which has sold really well. In fact, in the first week, it sold over 20,000 copies of that set alone. It hit number 6 on the New York Times ebook bestseller list and number 11 combined. So Zoe is here to discuss that, the success of the bundling strategy and her other publishing successes, of course, and whatever our viewers throw her way. So make sure you guys put some questions in. Zoe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, before we start going into it, the link is not live yet, so...
Uh-oh. Do I have to do that over again?
No.
Okay.
Continue talking, but I'm just posting it now, so just John gives me the link.
Okay.
So we just don't want to get into the juicy details until the link goes live.
That's right. I should have looked at that on there, but I didn't.
You have to talk because this is on the show.
Yeah, that's true. So, do we want to go? Do you want Zoe to go ahead and do her little introduction? That'll probably work.
I don't know what's happened to John, so he's disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and just kind of bring us up to date where you are now, Zoe. I'm really curious how you started writing. Were you looking at traditional deals before you decided to self-publish? Any interest in going hybrid, or had you published, earlier traditionally?
So no, actually, I'm a self-publishing author from day one. Well, not exactly from day one. When I started writing books, I didn't know what my publishing options were. As soon as I found out what my publishing options were, from that day forward, I was committed to self-publishing. I'm not opposed to the idea of a hybrid career. I think that there are definitely some benefits that publishers can bring. Okay, there's one benefit that publishers can bring, and that's a print distribution deal. And working with some editors. I mean, there are lots of editors that I really respect, and I would love to collaborate with them. But I don't see what the income benefits are to me from a traditional publishing deal, and the publishing pace is really problematic for me, given that I can self-publish a book every 3 to 4 months. And I can publish it within a month of finishing writing the book, right? That's huge to me. That's huge to my fans who follow me along as I write a book. I'm really transparent with my closest fans. As I write a book, they get little snippets as I finish chapters, kind of like my own mini Wattpad, if you would, in my Facebook group. And so that kind of connection from when I'm working on the book to when I publish it, that's one of the huge benefits of self-publishing to me. I've always been a writer. I come from a family of writers. My mom was a writer. My grandfather was a writer. They were both self-publishers, actually, too, before the digital publishing revolution. So I come from that background of entrepreneurial spirit and all of that. So the publishing side of things has been actually quite enjoyable for me. So I started writing when I was on maternity leave, my second maternity leave, got ideas for a romance book that turned into a romance series. And I published my first book almost exactly a year ago, June 15th. Last year I published my first book.
Wow. And what had you done to kind of prepare for that? Had you read any of the self-publishing blogs? You were on Kboards, weren't you?
I was on Kboards, yeah, and also on Romance Divas. The Romance Divas is a message board very similar to Kboards, but focused specifically on the romance genres and subgenres. And I credit all of my preparation to the other divas who are extraordinarily generous with their information.
Excellent. Cool. All right, are we live on the site now, Carl? I think we're good. Yes? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
Just explain what's happening.
Yes. Sorry if you're watching live from our site. If you're on YouTube, you probably saw it already, but we had a little technical glitch there, as it usually goes, but we should be on there now. And we have lots of live viewers tonight, Zoe, so you've generated some buzz for sure. So
everybody just wants to know. Everyone just wants to know if I'm wearing a bra. That's all. So I am.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it has like nothing to do with those 20,000 copies you guys sold that.
That kind of reminds me of Susan Butler too. She says the same thing on Twitter stuff. So that's kind of interesting. It must be a romance author's thing or new adult author's thing. Anyway, not to digress too much. Trish, did you want to start us off with the first question tonight? Would that be all right?
Well, I kind of already hogged all the earlier questions, but for the viewers that just came in, let's reemphasize that Zoe was one of the brains behind the Seals of Summer box set. I know there were several other people that were in on the marketing and strategies as well. But she's the one we have here tonight, so we'll be picking her brain. In the first week that this box set went live, they sold in excess of 20,000 copies and hit both the New York Times and the USA Today list. I believe she said it was number 11 combined on the New York Times list, and I don't remember what she said for the USA Today list. She is also an author of, did you say 5 full-length novels, though?
No, actually only 2 full-length novels and 2 novellas and 1 short novel in my series. And I'm happy to talk about that if anybody has any questions about how I published 5 titles without having to write 5 full-length novels. I'm not sure that that was necessarily to my advantage. That's a really interesting conversation within the romance world.
Actually, I think that would be a great way to start it off. We can come back to the box sets later. So did you do the full-length novel first then?
No, I didn't. And if I was going to make that suggestion to a new author or to myself with my next series, that I absolutely would start with a full-length novel. The first novel in a series is a unique marketing opportunity for the rest of that series, right? And if you don't do a full-length novel, that cuts off some of your marketing opportunities. So one of the biggest marketing opportunities right now is BookBub, right? That's an email list that I think we're all familiar with. BookBub will only list full-length novels. Well, they'll only list novels in excess of 50,000 words or 150 pages, which, by the way, isn't the same thing. Don't tell BookBub that. So my first novel was 45,000 words. And then, because it wasn't selling very well, and I'm happy to talk about my lack of sales too last year, because I think that's a reality for a lot of new authors. I'm happy to talk about that. Also very happy to talk about, sales now, which are a great improvement. So my first novel was 45,000 words. And because I was publishing it myself, and that was the length of the story in my head. That was the length of the story that I put down on paper. And no amount of editing and revising could make it longer. There just wasn't more story there to tell. I decided to publish it at 45,000 words, even though very smart divas told me, a 50,000 word novel is slightly more attractive to both readers and etc. Went ahead and published it, and I don't regret that at all. The next book that I wrote in the series, I published What Once Was Perfect, which was my first novel, in June, to pretty much to crickets. I have very supportive friends and family who all bought a copy. And then I didn't sell very many copies until September. In August, while I was writing the next novel, a full-length novel, the next novel in the series, I had one of those freakouts that authors have, thinking this is terrible, this isn't going to work, and I really stagnated in that story. And I knew that some authors had success with a prequel novella. So I paused the second novel in the series and wrote a novella. And I wrote that novella back in time before the first book, right? So I made it a prequel, with the idea that I would make it free and it would drive sales, it would funnel sales to the next few novels. Well, in my subgenre, novellas don't really capture the imagination of readers in the same way that they do in some other genres. So,
what's your subgenre, Zoe?
So I write contemporary romance, specifically small town contemporary romance. I like to call it modern, sexy, small town contemporary romance, as if that, to differentiate from sweet small town romance, because my books are very much not sweet at all. So yeah, but basically contemporary romance. And novellas, there are lots of novellas, and they're quite popular in seasonal anthologies, for example, but they just don't spark imagination the same way that full-length novels do. So my plan for my next series is to start with a full-length novel and not do. I will do novellas for holidays and that sort of thing, but I wouldn't start with a novella because I've done the difference. I've done a free novella, and I've also done book one, What Once Was Perfect. That first book that I wrote, I've done that as a freebie as well, and the difference is insane.
Can you elaborate on what do you mean by difference is insane?
So I can elaborate. So for one thing, I can't use BookBub to push that novella, right? So in September, when I released the novella, I made it free immediately off the bat, and I used a number of the smaller email lists to push that out, and I did really well. I had in excess of 10,000 downloads of that novella in September, and then again in October, so 20,000 across those 2 months through all of the efforts that I could muster. But the follow-through sales to the next 2 novels were pretty insignificant, and it's not because that novella is not good, because it's great. It's actually my favorite title in the series. It's just people downloaded it. I don't think that they read it. And the difference, how I know that they didn't read it, or why I think they didn't read it, is because at the back of my books, I have a link to my newsletter. My newsletter sign-up rates went through the roof when I made the novel free, and they got to the end of the novel and saw that offer. That same offer is at the end of the novella, and I just didn't get the sign-up increase, right? So that was last fall. In February, I made What Once Was Perfect free, and in the month of February, I had in excess of 100,000 downloads of that novel for free. So there is a little bit of difference in my visibility between the fall and the winter, but not that it explains in excess of 80,000 downloads as a difference, right? So that's the difference in total numbers, is 20,000 in the fall for a novella and in excess of 100,000 in the winter for a novel in the same series. Same name, same branding at that point. So I thought that it was possible that it was my name, increasing in visibility. I had a really successful holiday box set that I was in with Noelle Adams and Samantha Chase, who are both New York Times bestselling authors. So I've switched now again. The novel is for sale, and the novella is now free again, and the downloads are not significant on the novella. It's possible that a lot of those readers that would like my stuff, it's possible that they already have it, that they bought it as part of the box sets, or that they paid for it after What Once Was Perfect. But I don't think so. I think that I still only touched a narrow little segment of the market, and I think that the novella just doesn't have the same appeal.
So now for the novel that you put free, were you able to use BookBubs on that? That was the 45,000 word one, right?
Yeah, I just didn't tell them that it was 45,000 words. I told them that it was 165 pages, which it is in the print copy, and they took it. So that was really lucky for me.
And that's where you got the 100,000 downloads then through BookBubs.
Yeah, BookBub. I attribute 60,000 downloads to BookBub. There were about 20,000 in the week that it went free before the BookBub listing, 20,000 in the week that it went free, another 5,000 or 8,000 in the next week. Then BookBub, and I attribute 60,000 downloads to BookBub, and then it had another couple of weeks of really solid download numbers after that too.
So then what would your recommendation be for someone that's just starting out, to concentrate on full-length novels? Getting them out in a series first, and then maybe doing like what you're planning on doing, some holiday type box sets or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that having full-length novels, they sell better. You can sell them for more money, which means more income. And they also hold on to readers in a different way than novellas. Readers might like novellas, but they don't take ownership of those characters in the same way.
Okay, that's interesting. Did you guys have any questions on this? Are there any questions from the comments?
Well, I'll ask. Carl.
The comments.
Oh, go ahead, Carl. You got one?
Sorry. I know, I'm just scanning the comments at the moment. There's just a bunch of people saying how awesome you are, Zoe. So
yeah, I just put in the chat.
You're answering the questions before they have a chance to ask them. So that's good.
Good. I couldn't keep up with the comments. I'm like, holy crap! It's going by so fast. I can't.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new people, which I'm assuming that you've brought over with you, Zoe, talking about being browless and pantsless and all sorts of lovely stuff going on there in the comments. I also admitted that I am not wearing pants or a bra today, just because you're here.
It's in honor of Zoe, huh? You're not wearing bra or pants. Now, if you shaved your beard, we would take that more serious.
All right, so Zoe,
I did point out that most of the new viewers will recognize my body, my abs, from all of the top 100 romance covers at the moment on Amazon.
I thought there were no more shirtless ones anyway, right? We're supposed to be a little more modest now.
No, you can still use shirtless ones. They just don't get the Amazon promo like they used to.
Yeah.
So, Zoe, you talk a lot about BookBub. Have you used any other form of advertising, though? Have you tried any other advertisers?
Yeah. So I think that most of the different email distribution lists we used for the Seals box set. That first week, our goal was just to be absolutely everywhere. So we signed up for almost every list that is available and in our genre. We didn't, when I put out a book, I'm pretty frugal, and I carefully weigh which lists are worth my time, which lists have paid off in the past, both for me and for other authors that I know. For our set, we were aiming high. We didn't want to say it out loud, lest it not possibly turn out to be true, but our goal was absolutely to hit the best-selling list. And so we had a go big or go home mentality. So we were willing to spend the money on all of those email distribution lists, knowing that some of them probably wouldn't earn out, but what's $50 here and $65 there when the possible earnings is in the thousands of dollars, right? So we're willing to just be everywhere and hope that way anybody who is hooked into the ebook market, right? Because there are lots of people who only ever shop on Amazon and they're not signed up for any lists. It's hard to reach those readers. But anybody who has signed up for a bunch of email lists, they might only open one a day, right? They might not open all of them. So we wanted to be in all of them. That was our approach. So we did pretty much all of them. There was one list that came back and wanted a lot more money than we expected, and so we declined their offer for a listing, but everybody else we went with. And we didn't parse those lists too heavily for the results. I kind of had a gut feeling for which ones I would personally use again, and some I wouldn't. But that's not scientific, right? That's just my gut feeling.
Right, but what is your gut feeling saying? Which ones would you use again?
Well, yeah. So ENT, Reader News Today, that gave us a really nice spike on the Thursday. We used My Romance Reads on the Tuesday, which was our official release day, and had really nice numbers from them. That being said, I used them this week and had okay numbers, but kind of an unfortunate customer service response from them for something. So anybody who wants more details on that, welcome to email me, and I will happily share. So I don't know. So those two, we had the best response. Book Sentence was the one that wanted more money, and we just declined the listing. They wanted us to be listed as a bestseller, which means it goes out to their entire email list. But I don't think that the people who read their thriller book lists are interested in a Navy SEALs, like, we really only want to advertise to romance readers. I think that there are some box sets that would have crossover appeal, but our box set had a naked guy on the cover, so, you know, we really wanted to focus on romance readers.
And it wasn't Carl, right? It wasn't Carl on the cover?
It was not Carl, although we wanted him, but he was busy, so we had to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was busy posing for covers for Kristen Harbour at the time, so.
He was playing cricket.
So,
No.
Go ahead.
Sorry, and then in addition to the email list, we also did quite a bit of Facebook advertising that week. Actually, for a couple of weeks, we continued to do Facebook, both boosting posts as well as just ads, you know, all through their advert manager. And I don't know how much money we spent there because we each individually spent what we felt comfortable to spend. But I know that we've chatted about that as a group, and all of us are happy with that investment.
How much money did you spend for the email lists? What was your total budget for that, if you're comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I am the wrong person to ask money questions to, because I'm not one to keep like a total list. I would guess a couple $100. Somewhere between $500 maybe.
So backing up a little bit, now you said you had published your first book about a year ago?
Yeah, June 15th.
Okay, June 15th. So almost exactly a year ago. That's cool, huh? You're coming up on your first year anniversary.
Yeah.
So how far after that did you get involved in your first box set?
So I was contacted by Noelle Adams in August. Yeah, it was August. And we published the box set at the very end of October, beginning of November. So she contacted me about 3 months in advance, which at the time felt like a lifetime. Now I think, wow, that's actually a pretty good turnaround for a box set. Yeah, and it was
did you put your first novel in that box set then? Which novel was it you put in?
Yeah, so she actually contacted me because she had read What Once Was Perfect and thought that it would be a good fit for a Christmas box set that she was putting together. It's a Christmas story, sort of. It takes place at Christmas time, and then it extends past Christmas. Yep, I published a Christmas book in June. That is just how clever I am. And possibly could contribute to the fact that it didn't sell well at first. So she had read the book and asked me specifically to include that book. And at the point that she contacted me, it was my only book published.
But when the box set went live, did you have your novella up by then, or your? I
had my novella out and my next novel, and I pushed really hard to have that next novel out because I knew that the box set was a great opportunity to drive some sales, badly needed sales in my direction if I was going to continue this as at that time it was a side project, and so. Yeah, so I had my novella out. It came out at the end of August, and then my next novel, book 2 in the series, came out at the end of October, I think. I'd have to look at Amazon.
Okay, so did you see immediate transfer from your box set, addition to the rest of your work?
Yes, because the books were in the same series, I saw immediate sell-through. Not huge numbers, and if I did that same box set today, I actually might not notice those sales I wouldn't necessarily see that as a spike, or I would, but it would be a much more subtle spike. But given that before the box set, I was averaging 30 or 40 sales a month, in August I only sold 14 books before the novella came out. So in November, when the box set came out, and I immediately sold 20 or 30 copies of the next novel in the series, that was huge, right? And the novella, which I brought back to 99 cents, so it was free in September and October, but when the box set came out, I thought that would be my funnel, and so I put the novella at 99 cents. That novella, I sold a couple hundred copies of it in November and December, maybe not a couple hundred. I have to go back and take a look at my sales, but at least 100. It was 3 digits both months. I sold about 100 copies in November, and then in December when we put that Christmas box set on 99-cent sale. So we started it at $2.99 and then dropped the price to 99 cents for the Christmas period. That's when my sales went through the roof, when the sales of the box set went through the roof.
Did you have any kind of a link at the bottom, at the back of your particular story in that box set to show, people where your newsletter was, or bring them into your next book? Did you guys have back matter in your individual books?
We had one page of back matter, and I'm pretty sure mine linked to my website. Yeah, I don't think that it linked to the book on Amazon. I think that I named the next book in the series. And in fact, I think we might have had a short excerpt. Yeah, we had a short excerpt, and at the end of that was a link to my website. And I had tons of traffic to my website for the entire period that box set was for sale. And more importantly, mailing list sign up. So we must have included a direct link to our mailing list. So my mailing list, I had, like 5 people join in June when I started publishing, and then somewhere between 1 and 10 people every month until November. And where's my hand? Can you see? Okay. So yeah. my newsletter is like flatlined, and then in November, 70 people joined, and in December, 100 people joined, right? And then in January, it was like 80. It went down a little bit. In February, when I did the BookBub ad, 150 people, and all of a sudden, I went from having a newsletter of 60 people to a newsletter of like 400 people in 3 months. Not because of advertising, but because I put my books out there with the link in the back matter.
Okay. I
think we got some questions in the comments.
Yeah, I think John's been...
Zoe, some of our viewers are confused about the word count for what romance considers a full-length novel. You mentioned you were pressured into or encouraged to hit 50K. Is that considered full-length, or do you need higher numbers?
Yeah. Okay. So in romance, a short story is like under 10K and under. I don't know what a novelette is. I've seen that. That might be around the 10K mark. But a novella is somewhere between 15 and 30,000 words, right? And then 35 to 50,000 words is like kind of a no man's land. I call it a short novel. I don't know what other people call it. 50,000 to 70,000 words is a category length novel, not a full length novel. And then 70,000 words and up is a full length novel. Does that make sense? So in romance, category length novel refers to basically like a Harlequin length novel, right? So lots of publishers, Harlequin's not the only one, lots of publishers have category length romances. And I don't know how that translates over to other genres, but so when I say full novel, I just mean as opposed to a novella. And then the 45,000 words, I mean, it's a novel. It's not a novella. It's been called a novella in reviews, and I certainly don't object to that because it's a really robust novella. But it's a short novel in terms of its, how it's constructed.
Okay. Carl?
Hi. Yeah, there's a few questions. I've just put one in the chat that I need to clarify before we ask it. But Kate Morgan says, is she publishing on just KDP, or are you distributing widely to the other schools?
Widely, and I have from the very beginning, because I'm Canadian, I guess is probably my first reason, and so I have a Kobo. And so the thought of, and all my family members have Kobos. So the thought of not putting my book on Kobo and not being able to see it. So our Kobo is linked with our but a national bookstore chain here, Chapters. And so my books are on chapters.ca. That's almost as good as going and seeing my book in store, right? So for me, that was a no-brainer. And then my income is the majority of my income comes from Amazon, but it's not an overwhelming majority. So most months, Amazon accounts for somewhere between 55 and 70% of my income. Last month it was 45% of my income. So, you know, the other retailers are actually pretty significant for me.
Interesting.
Okay, there's another one. I just want to clarify. Nina Pierce asked about the BookBub. We're not 100% sure. Did you guys get a BookBub for the multi box set, or was it for your own individual books? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, only my own individual books. BookBub doesn't do multi-author box sets anymore. They did for a short period of time, but they haven't in quite a while.
Yep. Okay. Some of the other advertisers do take multi-author books box sets, though, don't they?
Yeah, I think all of them do except for BookBub.
Okay. I think that's all of the questions for now. So back to you guys, I guess.
Yeah, that's not a bad segue back to the box set. Trish, did you want to talk about, did you have any specific questions about the seal set?
Yeah, actually I do. Okay, so to start off, there was another box set in between your Christmas box set and the seal box set, wasn't there?
Yeah, so that's my
have you actually been involved in actually gathering the people and setting the box set theme?
Yeah, so the Spring Fling set, that was me wanting a release in March. So at the time, I was working full-time, and I was writing a novella, which wasn't that easy for me to write because it was a new genre for me. And so I just thought, why not put together some backlist books into a box set with other authors whose readers I think would like my stuff and who I think my readers would like their stuff. So that's what the Spring Fling set was. It was a completely backlist box set, 5 authors who all had a book up for sale. I included my novella in it, and it's still available for sale. It's coming down on the weekend. So June 15th is the last day of it being for sale. And yeah, so it hasn't sold gangbusters, but we've made nice, steady bits of income on it, grocery money, every month that it's been for sale. And that just speaks to, the value of collaborating on any project. I think that I could probably share the story of how the seal set got started. And it just, I really strongly feel that if there's a crazy idea that feels right in your gut, you should probably follow it because you don't know where it's going to lead. And if, like the spring set, it doesn't lead to best-selling lists, it's still going to lead to new readers, new email list signups, a bit of extra income, and those are all good things. Exposure is that, like, I'm still a baby author, and I have pretty good exposure for that position. I have way better exposure than I would if I was a mid-list traditional published author because I have all this flexibility in the world to do whatever I want with my titles. And what I choose to do with my titles is put them in box sets.
That's a good point. That freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, can't hear you, Trish.
Trish,
What
you're
happened?
muted. No, we still can't hear you, Trish.
All right.
There we go.
There we
now
go.
I got you. Go ahead, Trish. Oh,
Something's
All right.
going on. There we go.
All right, I think I hit the wrong button. Okay, could you take us through how you set the box set up? I know there's a lot of people that are asking if you have to do LLCs, if you have to set up separate bank accounts. I mean, what are the actual steps of setting a box set up?
Yeah, so I know that some groups do that, and it does make sense if you have a long-term plan to do multiple projects together. There are some costs associated with setting up an LLC. I'm also not an American, so that changes things. I'm a Canadian. But from talking to other authors who've done box sets and my own experience, it really is sufficient to just keep really good records of money in and money out and get people's social security numbers or EINs. I have an EIN, for example, so that you've got that paper trail for your national tax service. And yeah, it's just, it's income and expenditures. And one of the expenditures is the share of the funds that you send to the other authors. Setting it up is as simple as having a contract, and it can be a formal contract, like an agreement, or it could just be a paper trail of emails, and agreeing on, some pretty basic terms. How long is the box set going to be available? You want to set that from the outset. You can always change that once it's for sale, but you just want to be really clear, completely transparent about what is going to happen. Almost always, you'd want that box set, particularly if it's including backlist material, to be non-exclusive, so the books can be available, continue to be available for sale. And they're just transferring. They're granting you a very limited right to publish their copyright material on behalf of the group. Even that sounds more complicated than it actually is. I mean, in actuality, people just emailed me their files. I put them together in Scrivener, made an EPUB, and put it up on Amazon and all the other retailers.
Okay, so did you guys all kind of kick in a certain amount of seed money to start the box set off on the right foot for, say covers or formatting your ad campaigns?
Yeah, so for the Seals box set, we all chipped in a little bit of money for 2 specific invoices, for the cover and for the formatting, because they were not insignificant amounts of money. For the other 2 box sets that I've been in, that were published on Amazon and had expenses, somebody just fronted all of that. So for the Spring Fling set, there were no expenses up front. I did the cover myself. I did the formatting myself, because it was literally, I just needed title to release in March. So there were no upfront expenses. We did have 2 ad buys for that. We did a My Romance reads and an ENT ad for that, and I just paid those invoices. It was less than $100, and I took that off the first amount of royalties that we got back last month. Noelle did basically the same thing for our Christmas box set. She fronted that up front. If someone isn't able to front it, then then you would probably share it. But it becomes a little bit more complicated for tax purposes if you're claiming 1/10 of this invoice as opposed to just claiming all of it, right? And just keeping the income associated with that.
That's true. Now for your Seals of Summer box set, that was all exclusive material to that, wasn't it? You guys all wrote something deliberately for that for a set period of time?
Yeah, so we were exclusive for the first month. And some of us, maybe only me, are still exclusive to the box set. I think that everyone else has published their book. One of my critique partners, Molly McLean, literally just asked me yesterday. She's like, I noticed that everyone else in the set has their book out for sale. And I was like, yeah, how about that? I haven't done anything there. My book is still exclusively available in the Seals of Summer set, though.
So now, between the 3 box sets you've done, the Seals box set has been the most successful so far, hasn't it? Would you say?
Well, obviously, yes, because it hit the lists.
Okay, so
I would say that the Christmas box set that I did was equally successful financially, because we spent to date. I expect the Seals of Summer set to out earn it by the end of the summer, but we launched that book at $2.99, and we sold a lot of copies at $2.99. The box set at $2.99, and the difference in income between 99 cents and $2.99, as we all know, is huge, right? So even though that set only we drifted. We spent 1 day in the top 100 with the Christmas box set, which was loved for the holidays, and the rest of the time, we were obviously not ranked quite that high, and spent a lot of time in around the 1,000 rank. But you can earn a lot of money around the 1,000 rank. That's something which I think that it was good that we didn't hit the bestsellers list with that box set. I think it was good that I learned that lesson, that there is nothing wrong with just selling a lot of books. That still feels really good.
I'm sorry. We all jumped in one time. I'll go, and then Carl, I know you got one coming up. Did the hitting the list though? Did it make it stickier? Do you think? I mean, because you hit that list and that propelled it for a lot longer.
Oh, yeah. We were in the top 100 on Amazon for a month. And that was absolutely because we hit the list. And we not just did we hit the list, but we stayed on the list. So the New York Times list, we were only on for a week. One beautiful, glorious week. But the USA Today list, we were on that for 3 weeks, 4 weeks? 3 weeks at least. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Carl, sorry. You next.
That's all right. While on the subject of holiday box sets, there's a question in the live comments from T.L. Hedix. So if an author wants to release a holiday-themed short novella book or box set, how close to the holiday do you recommend releasing, and should it be offered for a limited time only, or do you keep it live all year round?
So our Christmas box set, we released the end of the first week of November, like November 7th, I think. 11th, maybe? No, it wasn't that late. November 7th. And that was great. By the time the Christmas period hit and we put it on sale for 99 cents, we had a good number of reviews. Some people had already read it, and so that really helped buzz. So yeah, I would say end of October, beginning of November would be a good time. End of November is okay too. I mean, obviously I was watching the lists really closely through that whole period, and I saw people releasing right up until the second week of December, but I think that that's a little bit late.
Okay.
Can I share a secret? Can I share a
should
secret?
they?
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Carl, let her share a secret, Carl.
So we're in talks. It has not yet been confirmed, but we're in talks to do a seal set for Christmas for the holidays, and if we do, we will launch it in the first week in November. So nobody do that release. Leave that whole week for us.
And Carl, when you're doing the shoot.
Yeah. So and the second part was, should they leave the box sets up all year round, or the book?
Oh, right. Book? Okay. So I've seen box sets stay up. And as long as they're selling and somebody doesn't mind doing the accounting, there's no harm in that. We have talked in the Seals group, we've talked about, what would happen if we left it up? What would that accounting look like? But at the end of the day, there does come a period of time when the effort of that accounting, which is always on one person, right? The person who did the distribution, it outweighs the income for that person. And so there's no harm in leaving it up. If it's your own personal story, yeah, leave it up year-round. People, who knows? People buy Christmas stuff up all times a year. There are people who just love Christmas. Leave it up. But if it's a group thing, probably it's unfair to leave it up forever. And then, there's who knows what happens with people's lives. It's probably better if it's for a short period of time.
Okay, so I have a question kind of pertaining to all three of your box sets.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you guys did a short pre-order on your Seals box set. Did you do pre-orders on the other two as well?
No. So having a pre-order at Amazon requires that someone in your group have an Amazon personal rep. It also means that person is the one who's willing to do the accounting, right? So, we were lucky enough to have an amazing author in our Seals group who was willing to take that on. So actually, this might be a good time to quickly tell the story of how the Seal set got started. So last November, and remember I said with my first set, the Christmas box set, I thought it took forever to go from August to November. We started planning the Seal set in November, and it came out at the end of April. So that that was actually a really long planning period, but we were writing new material for it. So my really good friend and amazing author, Cora Seaton, who, by the way, you should have on the show because she's a genius, absolutely a genius. She posted questions about her series. She writes modern Western romances, cowboys, email order brides, and her first novel was actually titled The Cowboy's Email Order Bride, and it was genius and sold really well. She made it free in April, and I was really proud of my BookBub numbers until her freebie came out, and she like blew me out of the water. Seriously, she's had huge success with her series. So she posted a thread on Romance Divas saying, like, kind of just looking at her series and saying, am I on the right track? Or, like, was my first book, was that the best idea I've ever had, and I'll never do something quite that awesome ever again? Because there's something magical about a high concept book, right, that grabs the imagination in a way that other equally good on the inside books don't. So we're having this conversation, and I said, not geniusly, just as a joke, I said, well, all your books need to just be like Email Order Bride, like the Navy SEALs Email Order Bride, and the veterinarians Email Order Bride, and the contractors Email Order Bride. And of course, the next two, those aren't so high concept. But Cora, being a genius, says, the Navy SEALs Email Order Bride. Yeah, okay, I'll write that. And then Suzanne Butler said, I have SEALs books. I can write a SEALs book. Let's do something. And I said, my husband's in the military. I can write a SEALs book. And then Suzanne's like, no, I was serious. And I said, okay, so we're actually doing this. So that's where the SEAL set started, out of a completely crazy idea. But then Cora sent me a private email, and she's like, no, seriously, what do we do? And I said, well, you need to put on your big girl panties and email bestsellers in the category and offer to do all the heavy lifting on a box set. And she did, and Sharon Hamilton responded and was like, that sounds like a fabulous idea. Let's do that. So that's how Sharon became one of the leaders of our group, was because we reached out to her. But she also saw the magic in a crazy idea.
Wow, that's awesome.
Was there any more comments any more questions in the comments?
I wouldn't mind asking Zoe a little bit more about instead of the box set, on her personal journey a little bit, because you talked about being full-time working, and then sounds like, are you full-time author now, and how'd that transition go?
Yeah, so I'm heading in that direction. So I'm giving myself until the end of the year. I have left my job, my full-time job, and I'm giving myself to the end of the year to figure out if I can do this in a full-time way and replace that income. And if not, then I guess I'll start job hunting again. But I'm actually super confident that I will be able to. And now that I'm writing full-time, the difference in productivity is huge. I don't encourage anybody go out there and quit their job, but being able to write, like I used to be able to only write on the weekends. I would do some editing and some work in the evenings, but I write best in 3-hour plus chunks, right? That first hour, I'm not that productive. We've all done on Twitter, like the 1K 1 hour challenges. I don't write 1,000 words in my first hour. I write like 500 words, and they're maybe not good, and I delete them all. It's my second hour that I hit that 1,000-word mark, and in my third hour, I'm flying, and I'm writing. If I have a 3 or 4 hour chunk where I'm uninterrupted, and I've sketched out the scene before I get started, I can write a chapter in 4 hours. I can't write a chapter in 4 1-hour chunks. So now I'm able to do that 3 or 4 times a week, as opposed to once a week, right? So that means that in theory, I managed to get distracted just like anybody else. But in theory, I should be able to write, not necessarily edit and publish, but write a novel a month, right? So if I do that 6 or 7 months out of the year, I'm way ahead of where I was last year. So last year, I only managed to write 2 full novels and then 2 shorter bits. Not even 1 full novel. The second full novel I didn't finish until after the new year.
Now, do you have any plans in branching out into a new series? You mentioned your next series, so I'm assuming you are.
I am, yes. So I've learned a number of things in my journey. I've learned the value of a high concept idea. So I would like to take a lot of credit with my fellow collaborators for the SEAL set. I want to take credit for the marketing and the promotion and the good stories that are inside the set, and for leveraging our mailing lists and all of that. And we did do all of that. But the primary reason why that box set sold so well is because it was about Navy SEALs. And that is a best-selling genre. I mean, Trish, like you know, military romance is huge, right? So it's huge. And so if you're able to write that, if you're not able to write it, well, then it doesn't matter that it's huge. But if you're able to write it, if you're able to write military romance as opposed to just general romance, right? So one of the, not failings is a harsh word. One of the take-home messages that I've learned over the last year is that it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like we talk about that a lot. One of the shining examples of it's a marathon is actually a traditionally published author who I adore, Robin Carr, who talks about how it took her 30 years to become an overnight sensation, best-selling author with her Virgin River series, right? And her Virgin River series, she's written books very much like that before, right? I'm pretty sure that there's a series that she wrote just before her Virgin River series that's like exactly the same series, one town over, and then those characters that we actually see in the Virgin River series. The difference between that series and her Virgin River series, Marine. Absolutely, that's the difference, right? You need to have that high concept hook. So my series, my current series, my Wardham series, which people who read it love it, I love it, I adore it, it has nothing. It has no other hook. It's on no subgenre list, right? It's not interracial romance. It's not military romance. It's not Western romance. Why did I set it in Central Canada when I should have set it in Western Canada, and then it could be a Western romance, right? But I didn't know. I wrote books like just down the road from me. So my new series is going to have movie stars and military men in it. Other than that, it's exactly the same as Wardham. It's actually a spin-off series. It has one of the heroes is a brother of the hero that I just finished writing. It's set 4 hours north of Wardham. So I say it's Wardham. Now I can't remember what I say. I say it's Wardham with choppier waves and craggier bluffs, and military men and movie stars.
Cool. That does sound high concept. I think you got some.
So I joke about it, but seriously, I'm more excited. So the new series is called Pine Harbor, and I'm more excited about my first Pine Harbor book, which I'm currently writing, than I am about my next Wardham book, which I'm also currently writing, because it's more exciting. They're both really good books, but the Pine Harbor book just elevates the same kind of storylines. It elevates it to the next level. You know, being high concept, it is something to joke about, but it's also actually, there's a reason why it's hookier.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of reading in your genre too, Zoe?
Tons. I read. I used to read a book a day as a reader when I was primarily a reader, and now I probably read 4 books a week.
Still a lot.
Wow.
Where do you find all the time? Are you a mother too? Do you have kids at home and all that?
I'm a mother. I have 2 little kids. I have a toddler who's still nursing, and so I spend a lot of time, bedtime. When I'm cuddling him on the chair in his room, I will read half a book. In that hour, I read really quickly. I also read short novels. This is really important. People do criticize my novellas sometimes. Like they're like, "Oh, I wish that was longer." I'm like, no. I love novellas. I love romance novellas. So I write what I read, and I read a lot of short. When I say I read 4 books a week. They're certainly not 100,000 word tomes,
Gotcha.
Tomes? I read 250,000 word books, so I definitely don't read a book a day.
Those dark fantasy authors.
Can we go back to newsletters really quick? I think newsletters are becoming more and more essential to the self-published author. And I know that you used the newsletters of your group, of the box set group, to kind of leverage sales. Could you kind of explain how you use the newsletters to keep sales going in?
Yeah, so it's important to use your newsletter strategically. So Amazon sales, Amazon will reward you for slow and steady sales or fast and steady sales as opposed to a single day of spike sales. So even though our box set went up for sale on Monday morning, went up for sale Monday morning, none of us sent it out to our newsletters until Tuesday, right? So we used social media on Monday. We had pre-orders, and that can't be the value of those pre-orders can't be underestimated. So we had pre-orders hit on whatever, Sunday night, early Monday morning, and then we had social media on Monday. Then we sent it out to our newsletters on Tuesday and into Wednesday. So basically, we staggered our newsletter send-outs over the course of the day on Tuesday. I don't know if I would stagger newsletters past that single day, because the longer you wait in the week, then some of your readers aren't hearing about it from your newsletter first, right? So that's a downside to staggering it longer. You certainly could. I don't know, that's something to try, but we just staggered over the course of a day so that we would have a nice steady drip of sales all day long into the night, and we saw those sales continue to the Wednesday. On Thursday, that was when we scheduled our ENT ad, which, because BookBub wasn't available to us, and in our group, we found that ENT is the second most successful list send out. So we scheduled ENT for Thursday. Another steady boost of sales, right? And then Friday, we had a bunch of smaller ads on the Friday. On Saturday and Sunday, we did a 24-hour Facebook party, which was a huge commitment, but because we had 10 authors, we were able to kind of man it, over that 24-hour period. And I don't know that directly led to a huge number of sales, because a lot of the people there were people who had already bought the book and had come to us because they found the party on our Facebook page after buying the book. But it certainly helped. It certainly reinforced how committed we were as authors to providing that entertainment to our readers, and then in turn those readers turned around and pimped out the book on social media for the next couple of weeks, right? That's the other piece. So building your newsletter and then using your newsletter, which I'd like to talk about a little bit too. But also, I really strongly believe in building a relationship with your readers in a way that respects your own boundaries. I don't want anybody to do anything on social media that they're not comfortable with. But fostering that, basically getting your readers to have buy-in to your projects, right? If they feel really protective and maternalistic over your projects, then they're going to want everybody to buy them too. Farm out that salesmanship.
There's a question on this subject from Nina Pierce. She said, when did you begin the newsletter, i.e. how many books did you have out, and how often do you put newsletters out?
I love this question. I started my newsletter 2 months before I published my first book. I started my newsletter the second that I grabbed my URL, my domain name, zoeyork.com. Plug. And I didn't have anybody sign up for it. My sister signed up for it, and my brother-in-law signed up for it because I love them and they're awesome, and they love me. But build it and they will come, right? So newsletter from day one. There's no harm to having that newsletter. It's not like, MailChimp sends out an email, like a bloopers list of all the newsletters that didn't get signups this month. Set it up. You'll never know when one person is going to join your newsletter. I didn't send my first newsletter out until August. I didn't send a newsletter out when I sent out my first book, because I knew everybody on my newsletter list. But yeah, August probably would be when I sent out my first one, when I released the novella. There were a handful of people on my newsletter at that point that I didn't know, so I thought they should know about my new release. And what was the other part of the question? How often do I use it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I send out a newsletter. So I don't actually, let's not start with new releases, because I use my newsletter to distribute advanced review copies, ARCs. So 2 weeks before a new release, I send an offer out to my entire email list offering them an advance copy of my next book if they are able to review it within, and the date always changes. From this new one, I said within 2 weeks of release. Sometimes I asked them for release week. Sometimes I guess I could ask them for release day, but that's just not my personality. So, a review within a reasonable period of time, and a link to a review of one of my previous books. So if you want a review copy of my books, you need to have already read one of my books, right? And not only have read it, but loved it and not loved it. You need to have posted a review. To be honest, I don't read the reviews. I mean, I do read my reviews, but I don't click and make sure that it's like a good review before I send them a review copy. I encourage honest reviews of my work. If you've reviewed my book in the past and are willing to review this book, I'm willing to send you a copy before it comes out. And I use that language at the back of all of my books, which I think is what has helped me, grow my newsletter list. I know that trade published authors don't always have that flexibility to share as many review copies as they want, but it's worked for me. So that's the first way that I use my newsletter. The next way that I use my newsletter is I send out a new release announcement, and lots of people ask me about if that sending out those ARC offers, if that impacts on the sales that my newsletter would otherwise drive, and I don't think that it does. I fully admit that I'm not totally a numbers person, but I have 800 and something people on my newsletter at the moment. So I think it was about 700 when I sent out the ARC offer for this novella, my most recent novella, Beyond Love and Hate, which came out at the beginning of the month. And about 50 people asked me for a review copy. Some of those requests, they hadn't actually reviewed one of my old books, so instead of sending them a review copy of my current book, I sent them a review copy of one of my first 2 books, or I point them to the freebie, whichever. So probably 40 copies of my novella were sent out to, because of that. I don't care about 40 sales, whether or not I got them. 40 sales, $2.99, that's $80. I am not in this business to worry about losing $80, right? I don't think about review copies ever, or even freebies. I don't think of them ever as lost income, because hopefully that review will lead to, many more times sales, and that's worth a lot to me. And often, often in addition to getting that review of the new book, when I send that email out, I get a flurry of reviews of my old works, right? As readers who recently joined my list, they're like, oh, I love that book. I desperately want to read it. I must quickly go to Amazon, type up my review so I can get this new copy, right? So I get a flurry of reviews kind of for both. So I think that that's fantastic. Then I send out my new release email, and I get, I don't know what is a decent number of sales. I get a bunch of sales from that, and I'm really happy with those. And then I do use my newsletter from time to time to share exciting news, sales, and twice I've used it for other authors to share their work. So I used it for one of my critique partners, Molly McLean, with her debut book, and with Inez Kelly. Inez Kelly is a traditionally published author, has lots of amazing books, and recently self-published her first book, The Bastard, which everybody should read because it's amazing. It's the start of a paranormal series. I don't really read paranormal romance, and I love this book. I can already tell you it's one of the top 10 books of the year for me. So when she gave me a copy of it in advance, I was like, can I send this out to my readers because they're going to love it? And they did.
Great title.
Yeah, right? Fantastic.
Yeah. Hey, TL Haddix asks on the website, besides reading as much as you do, how do you keep your pulse on the romance area and publishing? What else do you do to make connections and things?
Yeah, Romance Divas. I'm pretty active there. Facebook. I'm active on Facebook. I don't know how connected I am necessarily to the romance community there. I would say that for publishing, like keeping my finger on the pulse of the romance publishing world, is probably more Twitter than Facebook. Facebook's more about my fans, right? So the time there. And there's, I mean, I'm on a couple of private Facebook groups. Like there's one there's one group where we do write challenges with each other, right? So if that's a private group, we might chat about the industry, but generally speaking, it's more focused than that.
Okay, good. Trish, I can't hear you again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So going back to newsletters again, you're doing a newsletter drive, aren't you? Could you kind of explain that on how you're trying to get people to sign up for your newsletter?
Am I doing a newsletter drive? Tell me more about this newsletter drive I'm doing.
I thought you'd mentioned something on one of our hangouts about doing like a contest or something through.
Yes. Okay, so sorry, I was like, I'm doing so many things that I can't keep track of. So one of the things that I've toyed with in the last month or so is increasing newsletter signups using Rafflecopter giveaways. So I love Rafflecopter giveaways. I love that they're transparent and really easily integrated with Facebook and Twitter. And on Rafflecopter, one of the options that you can set up is like your own option, and you can just put in a URL and name it whatever you want. So it can be like join Zoe's mailing list. I know there's also a way on Rafflecopter to, like, if you have a paid subscription, there's a way to integrate with your newsletter. I don't have a paid subscription, and so far that hasn't been a barrier at all to it. So I did that. I did that on my last Rafflecopter. I've been warned against doing that by other authors. I think the warning is fair. So I should probably put a couple caveats on this. With MailChimp, and I think it's true for other mailing list providers, there's a period of time where your mailing list is free, right? So for MailChimp, it's up to 2,000 subscribers and 12,000 emails sent out in a month. So if you have, as long as you have less than 2,000 subscribers and you're sending out less than 12,000 messages in a month, MailChimp is completely free. I only have, 800 subscribers. So right now, MailChimp is free. And at my current sign-up rate, it's going to be free for the next, 8 months or so. So I figure I've got 8 months to figure out exactly what is the most effective way for me to connect with with people who want to be on my mailing list, right? I don't care if people join my mailing list just for a contest and then never interact with my mailing list again. At this point, I don't care about that, because I'm not paying for them yet, right? So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Right now, I'm going to try grabbing them wherever I can. I'm doing a pretty good job of grabbing them in my books. We mentioned back matter, right? So I have it at the back of my books. I've recently added it also to the front matter. So there's a link to my mailing list at the front of my books as well. And I think I've seen a bit of a spike there. So I think it's really good to have it in both places. I also have it on my Facebook page as an app that I've plugged in, right? There's like a Zoe's newsletter, join Zoe's newsletter or whatever link. On my website, there's a couple of different ways to join it on my website. All these different options. So now I've added this contest element. But I'm definitely going to be watching my mailing list and seeing, are there people who aren't opening any of my emails? And the closer I get to 2,000 people, I'm going to be culling those names from my list. Because if they don't want to open my messages, I don't want to pay to send them something which they're not opening.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted you to bring up, because I think it's a really kind of cool strategy.
Yeah, and I do think that I'm keeping an eye specifically on those signups, because I'm not going to continue to do giveaways that link to that offer bonuses for mailing list signups. I'm not going to keep doing it if it just clutters up a list and I don't see an open rate that keeps me happy, right? So it's kind of a short-term project at the moment while I've got some play in a free list. Just to see if it works. To be honest, what I've heard from other authors that have bigger lists, is that it's probably not a good use of a mailing list. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is something I really caution authors who get excited about lots of signups from giveaways or whatever. Your mailing list numbers, they're yours. They're private, right? I do think that there is some value to having a contest, to doing contests that boost your Facebook likes, right? Because your Facebook like numbers, those are public. And people, they're very affected by what's popular. So am I more likely to like a page because it has 10,000 likes than if I see exactly the same page that only has 1,000 likes? it's psychology. I am more likely to be like, yeah, I like that. I'm one of the 10,000. So I do think that there's value in collecting some Facebook likes that, whether or not they're actually going to interact with you, I don't know. Facebook isn't showing anything to anybody anyway, and it's all just about a public face. So do I want my public face to look super popular? Yeah, I do. But my mailing list,
table.
right? But my mailing list numbers, there's no bragging about those. Nobody would believe you anyway if they did. So really, you want that to be a lean list. If the longer I can keep my list under 2,000, the better for me, right? You want it to be like a lean, mean fighting machine.
Excellent. Well, that was awesome, by the way, because there was just really good wealth information. I think Roxy Rivera said you made her all tingly and excited, which was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yes. We are coming up on a quarter after. Did anybody have any final questions? I didn't see anything else on the site, so.
I have a final comment I'd like to make. Actually, Roxy was one of the Seal of Summer authors as well, wasn't she? And I know she had a lot to do with the strategy that you guys came up with as well. We're planning on having her on the show sometime, I think, later. I'm not sure exactly when. We're kind of booked right now.
For a while now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Soon.
But one of the things that I would really like to do is bring you and Roxy on together to go into your Facebook campaign, because most authors do not know how to use Facebook effectively. And I think it would make for a very interesting show to have you guys come on and kind of tell everybody what you did for your Facebook ads.
Yeah, sure. I will have to consult some of the other experts, but yeah, absolutely. My last comment would be, because we should, right? Like when we're talking about the success of the Seal set, you would really need to talk to all 10 of us, because it really was a collaborative effort. Something that I sometimes have seen is box sets being put together just of best-selling authors. Best-selling authors are all super busy. And so you actually don't want to underestimate the value of having super keen newbies in your group, because they will do all of the heavy lifting and they will just be thrilled to be on board. They're going to put their absolute best effort into their product, their story, their contribution to the set. And they're just the eagerness, right? And I say this now like I'm jaded, except that I was like so newbie and keen just a few months ago. So there's not one person in our group who didn't bring something super special to the set, and that's probably the magic ingredient, is the fact that there was no fighting, there was no disagreement. We were all super committed to putting out a really awesome product, connecting to as many people as we possibly could. We were our own biggest cheerleaders, and like I get all like teary when I think about, like what an almost missed opportunity it was, that we almost didn't do it, that it was almost a joke, and that it really, the set for some of our members like Sharon and Roxy and Delilah and Elle, this set was just really awesome, was just super fun. But for the rest of us, it changed our lives. That they let us do that with them is huge. That they didn't think that we were silly, and that was amazing. And the other women, that they were all brave enough to join our, with some best-selling, like some amazing rock stars of military romance. That they were brave enough to say, yeah, I can sit at that table. It's really, the power of women and the power of collective project. We are more than our own individual, the sum of all parts and all of that. Really, you should just have all 10 of us on. I don't know if you can possibly, you can't do that.
That won't quite work because you're only allowed 10 people as a hangout, but
yeah.
we could have half of you on.
To California, and we'll just broadcast from Sharon's house.
There you go.
That's a great idea.
Yes.
Well,
Zoe, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Carl. You got some admin.
You go on it. I was just going to say, Kevin Michael, who's not here because he's sick, is continuing his indie interview and other interviews on our blog series. The second one is now live. It was an interview with the cover book designers from Literary Designs. They actually were the designers of Fast Activation, Darren Wearmouth's first book that did really well. It's over on the blog, and I'm going to post it in the comments here if you want to go and check it out. And there's, I think, another 10 or 12 interviews coming, Trish. He's done a lot, so
Awesome.
Check it out.
Yes, thank you, Kevin, for doing that. Zoe, thank you for being on.
Sorry, carry on.
I just wanted to say thanks again, Zoe, for being on and being so forthcoming with all your stuff. It's really, really great to get that kind of insight, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much.
If you're wanting to get into the after party, remember to leave your email address in the comment section if we're not aware of who you are, or if you haven't been to one of the parties before. It needs to be a Google Plus profile or a Gmail address.
And tonight's party is braless. Just telling you right off.
No bras.
And
No
pantless.
bras. And pantless.
And if you are watching us for the first time, we would really appreciate it if you could go over to the YouTube video and give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You'll get all of the updates from there. And the audio version will be up on iTunes later with a special surprise new introduction music intro. So if you haven't heard that before, it'll be coming to you live later on some point tonight. So it'll be on the feed tomorrow, I guess, for most of you in the US.
Yes. All right. Well, again, thank you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Our fans are great. Oh, I see Susan Butler's calling. She's going to
nearly
do the
100. Yeah, there was nearly 100 live viewers across the website and YouTube, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome. Way to go, Zoe.
Way to go, Zoe. So I will be sending out the after party invites. I don't think John can make it, so
I'll be there.
Most of you have already left. Most of you already left your details, but yeah, if I don't know you, like Trish said, leave your email address, and we'll see you soon.